video is about what you're not going to hear from officials. Alright, number one, there's no reason why nobody should have a Baofeng in their house. Everybody should have a Baofeng, a UHF, VHF transceiver in their homes. Everybody should have one. Or at least 2 or 3 or 4 of them in their house. There's no reason why you should not have these in your homes for emergency type use. No cell phone service. No way of, reaching out to, family members. There's no reason why you should not have these in your homes. Everybody should have. Doesn't even have to be a Baofeng. But as long as it's UHF and VHF, everybody should have these in their homes. There's no reason why you shouldn't. You live close to water. Have a marine radio in your household. The Coast Guard, you're going to pick up the Coast Guard. Channel 16. Now I know, like, when there's an emergency, for an example, if there's a boat that lost power, that type of stuff, it's an emergency. And once, the Coast Guard makes contact to that vessel, they usually tell them to go to channel 22A, that's 22 Alpha, once the Coast Guard has made contact with the other vessel. So they're not hogging up 16, and 16 remains open for another emergency. But there's no reason why you shouldn't have any of these laying around. If you live close to water, the ocean. You live somewhere close to water, have a marine radio. Alright, let's say you don't want to get into let's say you're not a ham operator, you're not a GMS operator, and maybe you just want to have a radio to use for emergency use. Maybe MERS. MERS might be your thing. MERS.
Channel mode.
You have 5 channels with MERS. 5 frequencies. Now honestly, this would be channel 1,
4,
channel 2,
5,
channel 3.
1,
I'm sorry.
5, 3, 2, 3.
This would be MUS 1.
4,
This would be 2,
5,
3,
1,
4,
2.
and 5. So this one's a little reversed. Just the way it's, programmed. But even if you have these, program MERS, the multi-use radio service, go on Radio Reference and look up, the specs on MERS. But it's just options.
2, 3.
Now, another thing I want to put out here is personally, now this is something you don't want to do. I'm not saying you should horse around or anything that could be putting anybody's life in jeopardy, especially yours. But there's options out here, folks. Buy one of these Baofengs, an amateur, handheld, ham radio. Learn to program them by hand is another thing.
Frequency mode.
These frequencies here, the top one is the UHF 70 centimeter band for the national colon frequency. The bottom frequency is VHF for the national colon frequency. Now personally, you're supposed to have a ham license to operate, operating these frequencies. But this is when all else, you have nothing else. You have no cell phone service. You have no means of communication. You don't have a GMS license, a ham license, or for 2 different radio, what I want to say, for 2 different bands. A GMS license does not cover a ham license, or a ham license doesn't cover a GMS frequency, or a GMS frequency doesn't cover a ham frequency. But I'm talking emergency type stuff, folks. Emergency where you have no cell phone service, you have no means of communication. This might be the only way to receive and transmit emergency information. Personally, what you would do is, if you don't have a license to operate a ham radio or operate these frequencies because you don't have a ham license, give it your name and location. Even if it's a cross street, somewhere that somebody may know where you're located. But just don't operate these and horse around on these. Don't be horsing around on these and get yourself in a lot of trouble. And some hefty fines if you're out here messing with these type of frequencies. Only for emergency type stuff. Like personally, I'm only licensed for GMRS. My license does not cover the ham bands. But I'm just saying there's other options out there other than having cell phones. And other times, cell phones, they go down in emergencies. The truth is, emergency services like the fire department, police department, they have priority over them cell phone towers than us. So a lot of times, when there's so much traffic, and even if so, they might be out for several weeks, even months. So look into getting a ham radio, learn how to program them. The other thing I want to say is when you're operating one of these ham radios, and let's say you're on the either the UHF colon frequency or the bottom for the VHF colon frequency, don't be, playing around with them, horse playing and just acting stupid. Don't act stupid when you have one of these. This is for when there's loss of life and property. And another thing is you don't want to be, when you're using any of these frequencies, you don't want any split tones. You don't want any frequency splits, and you don't want any PL tones, DCS tones, CT, CSS tones. It's just going to be strictly frequency. This is slimplex. These are slimplex frequencies, meaning anybody that's operating any of these frequencies have to be close to you. Now, I feel that the squelch, number 1, is perfect for when you're monitoring these frequencies. Like, you don't need a license to monitor, but I think people should know about emergency type radios to get in and out. And I know there's some departments out there, smaller police departments, that are still using analog. You can technically use these as scanners. But everybody seems to be going to the newer phases like P25, TDMA, and maybe, and I know some are actually using DMR. But just don't be stupid. And we're talking about non-repeater use, but this could be valuable information that could save life and property. And anybody that thinks needs to share this, if anyone thinks that this video needs to be shared, please do. Please share this video with anybody that thinks they need to know about it. Thank you.